The metal bolt slid home with a finality that echoed louder than the music outside. It was a heavy sound, a wet clunk of steel against steel that vibrated through the floorboards. I turned around slowly, waiting for someone to shout, to laugh, or to explain. But the hallway was empty. There was no one left behind the velvet curtains. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. The air conditioning hummed, a low, constant drone that made me want to scream. I ran my fingers over the handle, twisting it uselessly. Locks don't lie, I told myself. This place wasn't designed for guests. It was designed for containment. And I had walked right in. They said it was a networking opportunity. That's what the email said. High yield. Exclusive connections. Private meetings. Nothing ever mentioned a deadbolt. Nothing ever mentioned how the lights went down the moment we stepped inside. I should have run. I should have turned back when the elevator doors hissed shut. But I didn't. I just stood there watching the digital clock blink green on the wall above the desk. 3 minutes had passed since I lost the exit. 3 minutes felt like 3 hours. I checked my phone. Signal bars were gone. I was invisible now. In the reflection of the dark glass door, I saw my own face. It looked pale, almost gray under the emergency lights. My husband told me this would help us pay off the credit cards. He said he trusted them. He said their system worked because it was opaque. He never warned me about the darkness. We needed money, badly. The bills were stacking up on the kitchen table like a pyramid that was ready to tip. I remembered the night he handed me the folder. The paper felt crisp, expensive. He looked tired, eyes bloodshot from nights spent working. I remember holding that letter in the dim morning light. I remember the coffee cup burning my fingers. I remember him saying, "Take the day off. Don't tell anyone else. Go alone. You'll thank me later." His voice sounded steady, but his hands shook when he touched my arm. He didn't look at my eyes. He looked at the door, as if he already knew I wouldn't come back to the same way I left. But I didn't hear the doubt in his voice. I only heard the promise of relief. Relief from the collection calls. Relief from the eviction notices tacked to the window last week. I thought I was going to a business summit, a seminar on investments. I thought I was buying knowledge. I didn't think I was signing away pieces of my autonomy. I wore my best coat to hide the anxiety in my shoulders. I drove the hour and 20 minutes in total silence. The GPS signal dropped halfway through the city limits. I stopped at a gas station once to fill up the tank. The attendant asked if I was okay. I nodded, smiling tight lips that hurt after a few seconds. He didn't stop me. Nobody stops them once the invitation passes your lips. I pulled up to the building at dusk. The brickwork was old, covered in ivy that looked like veins. No signs on the front, no address listed on the website, just coordinates sent via encrypted message. I parked behind the chain-link fence. The gate opened automatically when I got close, like it knew my license plate, like it knew my name before I even spoke it. The security guard didn't ask for ID. He just pointed down the ramp, down, into the belly of the concrete structure. I followed his hand. My heels clicked on the pavement, echoing too loudly. I felt exposed. Every footstep felt like a countdown. 10, 9, 8. Nobody else was down there with me, just the hum of the vents. When I reached the bottom level, the temperature changed. It felt colder here, drier. The air smelled like ozone and old wood polish. I could smell my own hairspray mixing with the stale scent of the basement. I approached the double doors. They were massive, painted black, without handles on the inside. I pushed one open, and the hinges groaned. The room inside was vast, long tables lined with chairs that hadn't been sat in recently. Dust motes danced in the beams of the overhead lights. There were men standing around the perimeter. They wore matching navy blazers. They looked identical in build, posture, and expression. None of them smiled when I entered. Their eyes tracked me across the room like hunters tracking prey. One man stepped forward from the shadows. He had a sharp jawline and a watch that cost more than our monthly mortgage. He didn't introduce himself. He just held out a clipboard. His palm was open, empty, waiting for me to take the weight of it. He said, "Sign here," pointed with a pen that clicked twice. I hesitated. The ink on the page glinted under the fluorescent strip. I read the top line: membership application, non-disclosure agreement, confidential obligations. My tongue felt dry, thick like cotton wool in my mouth. I wanted to ask who they were. I wanted to ask why the door locked. I wanted to ask why my phone signal vanished. He waited. He didn't fidget. He didn't tap his foot. He just stood there, blocking the path to the exit. The other men shifted closer, creating a semicircle around us. They formed a cage without walls. I felt sweat prickling along my spine. The room felt smaller, shrinking around my ankles. I said, "I need a moment." He tilted his head, acknowledging the plea but ignoring the command. "They didn't believe in moments," he said quietly. "Moments wasted momentum. Momentum builds equity." I looked at the signature line again. It was blank, hungry for a mark. I looked at his face. His eyes were completely still, unblinking. My hand trembled as I uncapped the pen. The ink smelled chemical, sharp. I wrote my name, Sarah Jenkins. The letters looked alien on the white paper. When I handed the pen back, he didn't smile. He didn't thank me. He simply folded the document and slipped it into his breast pocket. I felt the weight shift inside him, like he had swallowed something important. Then the lights flickered once. A deep shiver ran through the building. The hum of the AC died instantly. Silence rushed in to fill the void. A sudden rush of blood roared in my ears. I spun around to look for the door. The double doors were still closed, but they weren't unlocked anymore. There was a soft thud from somewhere deep inside the walls. It sounded like a drawer closing. I realized then that there was no exit on this floor. The stairs behind me were sealed, bricked up. The windows I thought I saw were mirrors reflecting the room back at me. I wasn't in a conference center. I was in a box. He noticed the panic rising in my chest. He stepped closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear. "It doesn't matter now," he whispered. "You signed the terms. Terms bind you. The contract is legally binding once the marker drops." He pointed to the corner of the paper where I'd signed. There was a tiny red stamp near my signature. Official. Sealed. I tried to speak, but my throat closed up. My legs felt weak, like jelly. I leaned back against the table edge. The wood felt cold, hard. I thought about my husband. He knew this. He knew about the locks. He told me it was just metaphorical. He said the club was exclusive. He said exclusivity required privacy. He lied. He didn't lie to me, though. He knew I wouldn't listen. The room began to fill with people. Men in suits poured in from hidden side rooms. Women in formal wear moved through the shadows like ghosts. They all carried clipboards. They all wore the same navy blazers. They started handing out forms. Lots of forms. More signatures needed, more fingerprints, biometric scans. They wanted data from my retinas. They wanted access to my banking passwords. I backed away. I tried to find a gap in the crowd to slip through, but the crowd moved as one organism. They parted for me and closed behind me. I was isolated again, trapped in a small circle of faces. Faces I couldn't see clearly. Shadows stretched across their foreheads. Their mouths moved in conversation, but I heard no words. They were speaking in code. A woman stepped forward. She held a tablet. She asked for my PIN. I asked for proof of authority. She showed me a document printed on thick cardstock. Gold foil embossing. A crest. I recognized the crest from a news article years ago. A scandal involving offshore accounts. A disappearance. People said she was dead. But she stood here, asking for my security code. She said, "Give it to me. Your current balance. It's easier for everyone." I refused. I said, "No, you're scaring me." She frowned. Scare is temporary. Fear is useful. She tapped her screen. A notification popped up on my phone. It buzzed against my thigh. Silent mode, but the vibration burned against my skin. It was a bank alert. Money transferred. Outbound transfer. $50,000. Gone. From our joint account. My stomach dropped. I looked at the woman. Her expression was unreadable. Calculating. She didn't care. She had already received the funds. The transaction cleared before I finished blinking. This wasn't a meeting. It was a liquidation. They wanted more. They wanted access to everything. Property records, tax returns, life insurance policies. I backed into the wall. The plaster crumbled under my fingers. I realized they weren't here to teach me anything. They were here to harvest. I grabbed the chair nearest to me. I wanted to throw it at them, to break the surface tension. But I froze. The first man moved toward me, slowly, deliberately. He didn't pull a weapon. He didn't raise a hand. He just exhaled deeply. He blew smoke out of his nose. Smoke rings floated in the cold air. Then he gestured to the corner. A camera lens blinked red. It recorded everything. "If you move," he said, "the footage goes public. Your husband, he will see it first. He won't come running. He won't save you." I stopped breathing. He knew about him. He knew about the marriage. He knew about the secrets I kept. I felt naked, stripped of every defense mechanism I possessed. He said, "Stand down. Join the queue. We have other slots to fill, other people waiting outside." I didn't want to join them, but I couldn't move either. My body obeyed the command. Legs carried me forward, feet walking toward the next table. Another form, another signature. I looked at the table number. It read 44. I sat down, stiffly, hands resting on the smooth mahogany surface. The grain of the wood felt rough against my skin. I picked up the pen. It felt heavier than lead. I looked at the next line. Additional assets, investment portfolio, all of it. I looked at my hands. They were shaking violently. A man stood over me, tall, imposing. He placed a hand on the back of my chair, warm, heavy. He said, "Sign. Don't make me ask twice." I signed again, then again, and again, until my fingers cramped. Each signature sold another piece of the house, another piece of the life I had built. Outside, rain started to fall. I could hear it tapping against the ventilation shafts, a rhythmic drumming. Time passing, minutes ticking away. I wondered if my husband was sitting in his living room drinking wine, wondering if he knew how deep this hole went, wondering if he was proud of the numbers I brought back. The woman with the tablet smiled. "Finally," she said. "Perfect." She handed me a badge, metal, cold against my wrist, attached to a lanyard. She said, "Welcome to the inner circle. Now we begin." I stood up. I wanted to run. I wanted to smash the cameras, but I couldn't leave. The rules applied, binding clauses, breach penalties. I walked out of the room, through the dark hallway, past the blind guards, back up the stairs. The air freshened as I climbed. The smell of ozone faded, replaced by the smell of perfume and leather. I found the main entrance. The bolts were still engaged. I pushed the door. It opened inward, toward the street, toward traffic. The city lights blurred through the rain. I stepped onto the curb. My shoes sank into the wet asphalt. A black sedan idled nearby, engine purring. I walked toward it. The driver rolled down the window. Same man, same blazer. He said, "Get in." I didn't want to go, but I had nowhere else to go. The apartment was empty. The bills were due. The money was gone. Where was I supposed to sleep tonight? How was I supposed to explain this to him? I got in the car, closed the door, soft, muffled. The engine growled. We drove away from the building. The building disappeared in the rearview mirror. I stared at my reflection in the glass. Dark circles under my eyes, hair messy, lips chapped. I looked older than yesterday, older than I was an hour ago. I didn't recognize myself. Who was that person who signed the papers? The drive lasted 20 minutes. We arrived at a hotel suite. Expensive carpet, low lighting. He handed me a key card. "Room 305. He said, "Rest. We talk tomorrow." I took the card, walked inside. The room smelled of lavender and mildew. I dropped the bag on the bed. It landed with a dull thud. I locked the door from the inside, checked the deadbolt. Click, turned the chain, click, click, 2 clicks, solid. I sat on the edge of the mattress, knees buckling. I put my head in my hands. Tears came hot and fast. They soaked into my palms. I cried silently, no sobbing, just water leaking down my cheeks. My phone buzzed again. A message from my husband. He wants to know how it went. He sent a photo of the bank statement. The $50,000 is gone. He asked where the funds went. I typed a reply. I don't know. I deleted it. Typed again. Everything is fine. Deleted again. I couldn't tell him the truth. Even if I could get to a computer. Even if I could call the police wouldn't understand. These people have lawyers. They have political backing. They have leverage. They owned half the court system in this state. If I spoke out, I would be the criminal, the fraud, the missing asset. I called him, voice shaky. "Hello?" I said. He paused. He was quiet for 10 seconds. Then he said, "Get your things packed. Tomorrow morning, move into a new apartment." I asked, "Why?" He said, "I don't want to deal with the fallout." I hung up. The connection cut instantly. No dial tone, just silence. I packed the suitcase. Clothes, toiletries, photos. I tore the picture frames before putting them in the bags. Glass shattered on the bedroom floor, sharp shards stuck in my socks. I ignored the pain. Pain proves I'm alive. Pain proves I'm real. I couldn't stay in that room with those men. I walked out of the hotel in the morning. Rain stopped. Sky was gray. Clouds hung low, heavy, suffocating. I bought a ticket for a bus downtown, far away from the financial district, far away from the buildings that looked like cages. I sat in the back seat, window facing the street, watching the world move by. People hurried past, heads down, phones glued to their eyes, commuters rushing to jobs they hated, kids waiting for school buses, dogs barking in yards, normalcy, safety, things I used to take for granted. Now they looked fragile, like they would break if I touched them. I went to work. My boss asked where I was yesterday. I said sick. He accepted it. He didn't press. Maybe he knew. Maybe everyone knows when something bad happens. They just pretend not to. We shake hands. We smile. We ignore the cracks in the foundation. I checked my bank account online every night. 0 balance. Pending transactions from unknown vendors. I froze my accounts. Changed every password. New codes, long strings of characters, letters, numbers, symbols. Nothing worked. They were still tracking. The biometrics linked to my identity. They had a copy of my iris scan. They had my life on file, physical location, spending habits. Medical history. DNA sample from the cheek swab I missed. I found it in the bathroom trash bin at the club. I picked it up. I burned it in the sink later. Ash swirling down the drain. Water flushed. Gone. But some things stay. I divorced him. Not legally yet. Separated. Moved to a different state. Used cash to buy a ticket. Rent paid in deposits. No credit checks. I live in a studio apartment. Small. Windows that don't open. Security guard at the lobby. I hate the view. I keep the blinds closed. Sometimes I dream about the club. I wake up sweating, hand clutching the blanket, searching for the door handle. It's always locked, always bolted. I wake up screaming sometimes. Neighbors knock on the wall. I apologize, tell them I had a nightmare. They stop listening after the second week. I sit in my kitchen, coffee cup in hand, staring at the microwave. The clock ticks, red digits flipping, seconds counting down to nothing. I wonder if they are watching me now. Is there a camera on this ceiling tile? Does the bulb have a sensor? I hold my breath, wait for movement. Nothing changes. Silence is the loudest noise. It fills the room, presses against my eardrums. I am alone, truly alone. No husband, no friends, no money. Just a debt I didn't know existed, a shadow debt, owed to people who don't exist on paper. But they exist in the world. They exist in the shadows between the lines. I think about the man with the clipboard, the first man. He promised stability. I got chaos instead. I traded certainty for a lottery ticket I never scratched. I gave them my future for promises written in disappearing ink. I wish I could go back, to the moment the door locked, to grab the handle before it clicked. I can't turn time back. I can't unsign a paper. I can't unknow their faces. I live with the memory of that room, the cold floor, the heavy door, the silence, the weight of the contract in his pocket. I carry it everywhere, in my mind, in my chest, in my blood. It follows me. Every stranger looks like a member. Every suit looks like a uniform. I cross the street when I see a navy blazer. I hide when the sky gets dark. I sleep with the lamp on, bright light, blinding. I need to see where the shadows end. I need to know the boundary. I need to feel safe. I still don't know what kind of club it was. Business, cult, crime syndicate? Maybe none of the above. Maybe it's worse. Maybe it's a machine designed to grind people down and spit them out. Empty shells, broken credits, broken trust, broken marriages. I am just one shell. There are thousands more. I check my pockets when I enter a store. Make sure I have keys. Make sure I have my wallet. Make sure I have nothing they can take. I touch the zipper on my jeans. Real metal teeth, heavy duty. They don't stick. They glide. Smooth. Reliable. I trust the zippers now. I don't trust people anymore. They are patient. They are waiting. I can feel the waiting. It sits on my shoulders like a burden, weight pulling me down, bending my spine, making me stoop. I walk slower, speak softer. I become invisible again. Just another face in the crowd. Just another statistic. Just another name on a list. One day I hope to forget. I hope the nightmares stop. I hope the sun shines brighter than the lights in that room. I hope I can open a window without checking for bars. I hope I can trust a bank again. But hope is a fragile thing. It snaps easily, like the wire they used to tie my bag. So I wait. I watch. I breathe. Day by day, minute by minute, hour by hour. The clock keeps moving. I keep moving. Away from the past. Toward a future I don't trust. I learned the hard way that secrets have a price. Sometimes the price is everything you own. Sometimes the price is yourself. And I paid it. Fully. Committed. Never refundable. I wish you could see my eyes now. I wish you could see what they took from me. V.